Welcome to Good Vibes, the podcast that brings the timeless beauty of Eishes Chayil into the rhythm of real life. Each week, we unpack one pasuk, not as a shir, but as a spark for honest conversations, refreshing insights, and a little Torah light you can carry with you. Because meaning shouldn't feel heavy, and connection doesn't have to wait for quiet. This is Good Vibes, for the Jewish woman who's doing a lot and still reaching deeper. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Good Vibes podcast. Today, we are going to jump right into Pasuk Mem. I'm really excited for this practical lesson and theme. I know I say it almost every time, but I really am. So, Pasuk Mem states, Marvadim Asusela Sheish Vargaman Levusha. This translates to, she makes her bed sheets for herself, and her clothing is made of Sheish and Argaman, which is linen and purple. Both Sheish and Argaman are considered to be royal and are actually what the Kohen Gadol used to wear. So that shows us like the value and the chashivas of it. So I want to briefly share two mafarshim on this pasuk. The Matzudas David brings forth and stresses that the bedding is made by the Eishes Chayil herself, and that the clothes, these royal linen and purple clothes, were also made by the Eishes Chayil herself. And the Malbim also emphasizes on the fact that the Eishes Chayil made these beautiful sheets and royal clothing by herself, that Hashem gave her the capability and the ability to make these garments herself. So both with the Matzudas David and the Malbim, we see that the pasuk here has a big overarching emphasis on that the Eishes Chayil is really doing something herself. Not only doing something herself, she's taking care of herself. She's doing something that's for her own needs for herself. It's interesting because for those following the different episodes, we see that Pasuk Chaf focuses that the Eishes Chayil takes care of other people. Lamed focuses on the fact that she takes care of her family. And now Mem focuses on the fact that she takes care of herself. So again, this Pasuk is showing us the importance of not only taking care of everyone else and the value in that, but taking care of ourselves as well, and the importance of self-care. And I want to take this opportunity with this pasuk and discuss what it means to take care of ourselves. Really, how the Eishes Chayil takes care of herself. What is self-care to the Eishes Chayil? And self-care in today's day and age is just so part of our language, and just it's something that we throw around. And I want to take this opportunity to explore what self-care is for the Eishes Chayil and what we can learn from this pasuk in terms of our self-care. So today we have on Kayla Levin. Kayla Levin is a brain hacker, podcaster, and life coach for married Jewish women. She's the host of the popular podcast How to Glow, and she lives in Israel with her husband and children. Kayla uses a combination of mindset coaching, modern relationship research, a deep understanding of how our brains are wired, and most importantly, wisdom from Torah sources that can guide and inspire us on our journeys. Kayla has worked with hundreds of women through private coaching, small group programs, and her online courses. She has two online courses. The newlywed course is First Year Married, and the program for women married for longer is called the Marriage Mastermind. Kayla, thank you so much for coming on and partaking in our podcast.
I'm so excited. When you told me about this project, I was like, thank you, Mishpacha. Thank you, Racheli, that you're doing this. I think we just need so much of this. And you really are hitting a need. So I'm very excited to be part of this project.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you. Okay, so I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you about what you just share your wisdom on what self-care is, what we learned from this pasuk, and from your experience in coaching women, how do we apply self-care to our lives the way that Eishes Chayil would, let's say?
I think just like you said before, we throw around the word self-care a lot, and we often claim that it's the solution to a lot of problems. You just need more self-care. If it's that, you're feeling resentful, more self-care. And I love that in this pasuk you see that, like you pointed out, there's the level of royalty and chashivas in the way that what these garments are made of, but they're also very basic garments, meaning you need clothing, you need bedding, right? So there's kind of this like dichotomy between there's different levels, right? And this is what I teach about self-care, which really just simply comes from having worked with so many women and seeing that I believe very firmly that if we're not clear on what type of self-care, and I actually break it into 3 levels, what type of self-care we need, we will usually give ourselves the wrong medicine for, right? We want to make the right analysis or assessment of what it is that we specifically need. So I kind of feel like these tie in. Of course, when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. So in my head, this paradigm is so helpful. I've seen it work so many times that I kind of see it reflected in the pasuk as well.
That's beautiful. Can you share these 3 levels with us? I'm curious to hear about them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the kind of self-care that I think maybe most of us, especially those of us who tend to dismiss the idea, would think of when you think of self-care. Okay, so let me start with this. I break it down into 3 levels. So there's exceptional self-care, routine self-care, and baseline self-care. Okay, so exceptional self-care is kind of the cliche, right? So this is the going to the spa, this is taking yourself out for a girls' night. I don't know, everyone has a different kind of self-care, right? And there's so many different types, but it's the thing that actually doesn't fit into your normal life, but it also kind of makes you feel like, "Oh, I really went above and beyond." It could also be like taking, a davening trip to Kvarim. It doesn't have to specifically be physical, but it's something that's not a part of your normal life, and so you kind of feel like you're moving above your normal life. You're getting that extra infusion of energy or inspiration or whatever it is you're looking for, and then you bring it back in. Going to a wellness retreat, right, would be another example. So, exceptional self-care is great. We don't wanna hang our hat on it because it's exceptional. We can't necessarily fit in it on a regular basis, but when we can do it, it's great. What I think are more important are the next 2. So, routine self-care, you wanna think of it in terms of, like, routine maintenance, like the way we think about a car, right? A car needs an oil change, a car needs gas. You don't wanna be letting it run out on the highway. Honestly, we need to think about ourselves in a very practical way. Hashem gave us bodies and we have a responsibility to those bodies. And what do we need for it to just be humming along well? So that's not going to a yoga retreat, but it might be making sure you get in 2 good walks a week, right? And it's going to be different for everyone. But this routine self care is just kind of a check in of like giving myself what I need. And again, it could be spiritual, psychological, growth, social, physical. But am I giving myself what I need to be operating well? Maybe not exceptionally well, but well on a weekly basis. Okay. And I think that this is something that women resist. We don't do this, especially newlyweds. I'm happy to talk about that if you want, why it's special for newlyweds, but it's something that I think that a lot of women resist. We don't think about it that way. Sometimes it comes across as I want other people to encourage me to do things like eat a healthy meal because then I'll feel more taken care of. So, kind of taking that ownership of ourselves and really figuring out our routine self care is very important. But the place where I feel that women really need to be aware is baseline self care. So, baseline self care is below this level, you are not yourself anymore. So this could be someone who has a colicky baby who's getting up every couple hours and they haven't had a decent night's sleep and they can't even remember how long. This could be a person who's recovering from a surgery, right? This is just like a person you're just not, or you're dealing with a tremendous amount of stress. When I was coaching during Corona, some of my clients who simply weren't seeing other people in real life or getting out of the house, they were below baseline. And when you're below baseline, it's a very different tactic. First of all, when we're below baseline, the number one thing is we always want to reevaluate our lives and relationships, right? So if someone says to me, like, I just don't know if I married the right guy, I'm like, how are you sleeping? Let's just double check before we go into this conversation, right? Because there's this tendency to want to make massive changes below baseline when really the solution is eat some chicken soup and go to bed. Like you just need the number one priority becomes just get back to baseline. Very frequently, this is where we're at. I'm sure there's probably so many we always talk about how busy this generation is, depending on your level of technology use, that can contribute massively to sleep deprivation. There's a lot of just tired people walking around, and this isn't the time for a wellness retreat. This is the time for early bedtime, 3 nights in a row, and some healthy food, and just get yourself back to where you feel like yourself again. You generally enjoy your life. You just are kind of functioning. And I think this is one where people very often misdiagnose what they need. They'll be like, oh, and I think one of the reasons is people feel like when they're below baseline, they don't see the end of the tunnel. So they're like, well, all of a sudden there becomes this urgency. If I don't sign up for this, master's in psychology right now, I'll never progress my career. So I just have to do it even here. Like, it becomes this, like, very big, like, life change moment, right? You know what? The masters will be there after 3 nights of good sleep, and let's see if you still feel quite so compelled at that point.
I have so many thoughts. First of all, thank you. I'm glad that you just laid it out for us and told us what the 3 levels are, and now I have a lot of questions. So, firstly, why is it that women resist this? Because I agree with you, and I definitely have seen it in myself sometimes. I know other people have told me as well. Why do we have this that women resist taking care of themselves?
Well, I think there's a couple different pieces. Like I said, very often I will hear women say something along the lines of, "How come he didn't notice how tired I was?" So I think there's kind of this when we're lacking confidence in a relationship, we look for it in funny places. And look, for newlyweds, the emotional bank account, the relationship bank account is very small. They just haven't been together long enough to feel confident. And so it comes out in these funny ways, right? He should have noticed that I was tired and told me to go to bed. And I'm thinking, well, you were single for 8 years and you always managed to put yourself to bed. Like, what happened under the chuppah, right? So, but it's very common. So that's one piece. And it can also come from somebody who's been married for 20 years, but she's feeling a little disconnected. And so her confidence has also dropped. And so she's again looking for funny reassurances that he cares. Right? So that's one piece. If I'm taking care of myself, then I'm not able to be taken care of, right?
Where what's like the antidote of that? Meaning, what's the ideal version that we take care of ourselves and we're also taken care of at allotted proper times and ways?
Right. And I think it's really just sort of holding it very gently, that desire to feel taken care of, that desire to feel cherished and important and loved. That's a very real desire. That's how women are designed. We want that from our husbands, right? And we want to be makabo. But I think we also have a little bit of a mishmash in our head about all the different concepts of like femininity and masculinity. And, the damsel in distress or the Disney princess gets mixed in a little bit, right? Like the helplessness, where we look at like our female leaders and you look at Aisha Chayil, she's not helpless.
Not only is she not helpless, she's helping other people and herself. I should say first she's helping herself, meaning I definitely believe in that when you have self-care, then you can take care of more of other people. So it's not only she's taking care of herself, she's also able to take care of other people. And that's the actual opposite of a damsel in distress, help somebody save me. And there's definitely times in our lives where we need more intervention or more help or more expression or to be cherished more. But I guess from what you're saying is that it's
We get confused. We get confused about sort of what does it mean to be loved and taken care of. Like these sort of Western ideas get mixed in with our Torah concepts. But I think there is something very real there. I don't want to just gloss it over because we're meant to be makabel. And what am I being makabel? And we are more emotionally sensitive. We are more, there's so much about, I try not to read what it tells the Hasanim to do, right? Because you're not supposed to like get in the other lane. But from what I understand, there's a lot about be very careful about making her cry. She could cry. She's more sensitive than you, right? It's very important not to make her cry or to make your wife happy. And it's just part of the makeup. I think that is part of the makeup that we have. And from that place, then we go, well, so I think I'd feel better if he would, tell me like, "Oh, I noticed how hard you've been working and could you go to sleep and, let me take care of XYZ." That would feel like being taken care of. And I think, it's a really good question and I'm not 100% sure, but I think the idea is even if that's where I'm at now, when I think about the bigger vision that I have for us as a home and as a partnership and as a couple, what might that look like when we're dreaming bigger than he helps me go to bed at night? For instance, if I'm saying, I want to take a Christ for the Jewish people, I want to be a person who is fundamentally changing the future of the Jewish people and helping the Jewish people. So I'm no longer interested in someone making sure I go to bed at night, right? My job is too big. Right? And so now it kind of changes the scene. And I'm giving you from, 0 to 100, but maybe there's something along the line there where I'm still saying I want this partnership. I also have this also very I think for me is very helpful to learn is that for women, supportive activities boost our oxytocin. We need a good amount of oxytocin. I won't go into all of the science, but it's a very good hormone for us to have well stocked. Supporting activities could be like going to a coach or a therapist, could be going to a manicurist. It could be talking to a sister. It could be honestly having a salesperson help you pick something out in the store. It's anything where you feel like there's someone here helping me. And It's interesting. I actually try and build that in a little bit, almost into my routine self-care. Like, I consider that an important factor in deciding if I'm going to invest in something. Okay, it'd be very nice for me to go to this. I'll give an example. I recently went to my parenting teacher for a one-on-one session, and it was 50% because I had some specific questions for her, and it was 50% because I felt like I could use an oxytocin boost. And I knew that just having that hour of sitting there and having someone help me with the things that I'm struggling with, and giving me direction and aitzah was going to make me feel supported. And that was needed. I needed that.
I love that. I love that. I think from everything that you're saying and putting it together with this pasuk, I think that it's showing us that it's not a sira being taken care of and taking care of yourself. Again, like you were saying, it's part of our being to be a mekabelas, to want to get that feeling of to be cherished, to have that quote unquote oxytocin boost, like you were saying. But we see in the psukim that the Isha Chayil takes care of herself. And it's not either or. It's not I'm going to take care of myself and then nobody's going to take care of me. It's I'm gonna take care of myself because I'm not helpless, because I'm strong, because this is what I deserve, and also, I can still feel cherished, and I can still be taken care of.
And not just this is what I deserve, but because I've got big dreams for what I want to be bringing into the world.
Right.
And so I need to take care of myself, right? I need to, I can't be falling apart if I'm, now, granted, there are times in our life where as women, we're just falling apart. Look, you having your baby, that's just what you're supposed to be doing right now. You're just, do your best. You're not at baseline. And the biggest thing about being below baseline is number one, try to get back to baseline as soon as possible. But number two, don't take your brain seriously until you're back.
That's so important. That is you just said it so nonchalantly, but I
Mhm.
think that's like a earth-shattering sentence. I think that so many times we're just like, feel like you have to make a grand decision, and it's, "No, just go get some sleep, drink some tea, and take a breath, and then you'll be able to."
Here's the visual I wanna give you. It's like you have a little brother and he's, 18, let's say, and this is this I don't know what I'm not gonna give you an age. You have a little brother and it's his first time drinking on Purim, and he had a little too much. And he's telling you how he's figured out how his yeshiva needs to be reorganized. And he's, like, really emotionally committed, so this is the solution. I think I should call my Rosh Yeshiva right now, right? And tell him how he should fire this mishgiach and he should hire this person to do the job. And you would just be like, "You're so cute. Have some water. I'm gonna put you to bed, and you're right. In the morning, if you still feel that way, we could decide about calling, the Rosh Yeshiva." It's we just I'm listening. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just gonna get you to bed. Right? That's how we treat our brain. It's
Yeah. I wanna add, one more thing that I just keeps on coming to mind. I think that sometimes why women resist taking care of ourselves is because a big part of our role is taking care of other people. And on our minds, it might be like, I have to take care of this kid and that kid and my husband and the community and this. And that's why before I mentioned like that we are deserving of it the same way that my child is deserving of my attention and love and care. And so with my husband, and if I have extra bandwidth, people outside of my home, I too deserve that. I also deserve that. And genuinely, my soul, my neshama deserves that. And I think that sometimes we don't make the connection of self-care of, I'm going to get a manicure because I want my nails to be nice, but I'm going to get a manicure because it makes me feel good and it makes me feel taken care of. And that's something that I, in the deepest sense of myself, my younger self, my inner self, myself today, that's what I do deserve that. Not saying that we deserve a manicure every day, but I deserve to be taken care of by myself. I deserve to make myself food that is going to nourish me the same way that I give my child food that nourishes him.
Yep. And I'll add to it also just to make it more practical, which is there's a big difference between the way the male brain and the female brain is wired. And a male brain notices when it's hungry. It notices when it's tired, and when it gets to the point where he's tired, very often you'll find that a guy could just pass out on the couch, like, in the middle of a conversation or, in the middle of the day, like, anywhere. There's people around. He's managing to just sleep because right now he's tired, and when he sleeps, he'll feel better, okay? A woman vaguely registers that she's exhausted, but is also registering that there's 20 things around her that are all calling her attention of completely different levels of priority, but they're basically all just as loud. So, the curtain is weirdly wrinkled behind the seating chair thing over here, and that's bothering me because I just wanna straighten it, but also I haven't defrosted anything for dinner tonight, and also I have an email I have to respond to my it's everything is kind of shouting at her all at once. She's taking in a ton of stimuli at once, and so 2 pieces. One is a reframe I really wanna offer to anyone who feels frustrated that she's, 5 minutes from finishing dinner and her husband comes in and raids the pantry, which is this is how he's wired. He's very aware of his physical needs. They speak louder and they speak clearer and there's not as much competition. And it is a very good thing to be married to somebody who can be such a mentor for you because as women, we need that.
Right. Can learn from them of how to
And
prioritize.
instead of being mad at it, we should say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it's an idea. It's an option to go take some crackers 5 minutes before dinner because I'm starving, but looks like it is."
I love that. I love how there's like science behind it. There's science behind why the way that we act. And
Yeah. So it just adds on to what you're saying because it's not just that we deserve it, it's also that we have to be a bit more
right.
intentional. We can't just leave it up to our stomachs to tell us that we're
Because
hungry.
then we won't.
If we're not planning on lunch, it might not
Right,
happen.
right. That's why meal prepping is great in my personal opinion. Can you walk us through the
Yeah.
3 different levels of, like, how if I'm at below baseline, how do I get to baseline? And then how do I build a routine self-care? And then how do I get to the exceptional how do I, like, learn about myself, I guess, to make that a reality or implementation?
So below baseline, the best option that my favorite option anyway for getting above baseline is something that women also resist, which is let your husband solve the problem. Just present the specific problem and be willing to go with his answer because your brain is not really in a great place to troubleshoot right now. And so, very often when we're complaining to our husbands, this is just a classic. And honestly, it's not just women and men, but maybe more frequently with women and men. Very often we're complaining we want empathy, but this is not the time for empathy. This is the time to say, I have a problem. I need it solved. Could you just take this? Like, I don't know. Just take the baby wherever you need to go. Don't even tell
Right.
me.
Just solve it.
Right? And just let me sleep for the next 3 hours or for Sunday or whatever the time is. Like, I just have to get back to baseline. I think this is actually a concept that very much speaks to men because they
Right.
get it.
It's
They get what it
practical.
means to have your body interrupting your ability to produce and to create and to be useful. And exactly, it's a problem with a
Mm,
solution. But we just have to be willing to release that the solution has to be according to my rules and how I think it needs to go. So that's below baseline. And if not, you can ask a friend to give you ideas. But really, it's just like this you put things on ice. Whatever I can put on ice, I'm putting on ice. It's on the back burner. I just need to get myself feeling better
mhm.
again, right? Can't stay home from work, even if you're not sick, and just sleep all day. Whatever it is that you need to do, we're not meant to be functioning below baseline for an extended period of time. Right? So, and again, knowing, let's say, if you know that you're expecting, and postpartum, I think, is the one that I probably come across the most in my work, but you're within the first 3 months. I actually have a whole podcast episode on this is how you should think about your life for the first 3 months, and then the next 3 months,
Oh,
and then the
wow.
next 3 months,
I
like
love that.
after baby, because you have to just have a paradigm that is totally different because you are going to be
Right.
below baseline. Okay, fine. So that's getting below baseline. Getting to routine, I think it's helpful to just think about the different areas. I don't have them written down in front of me the way that I teach it, but anyone could brainstorm this. This isn't brilliance or, something I've registered trademark. You need something, physical. You need to know physically what your body needs. Okay. And again, routine is not, oh my gosh, if I got a 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep, I'd feel amazing. Routine is 7, I'm good. I don't wake up feeling like I want to climb back into bed at 7 hours, right? Whatever the number is for you. So that's sleep, that's food, that's the type of food, that's how much food, that's when the food, right? That's exercise, okay? That's certain types of personal hygiene would probably fall under there, right? Then we have social, then we have spiritual. You could possibly add creative. I think different people maybe
Right, I
have
was just
different
gonna
things that
ask
need to go
that,
into
like,
the
if different
routine.
people have different things that they need, like, somebody who needs who
Yeah.
for them, let's say reading a good book in bed is, like, grounding for them and it's their outlet,
Yeah.
then they need that as opposed to somebody who's maybe creative or maybe very social and needs that more. I think that a big part of self-care is really knowing yourself, which is really hard and a whole separate topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Right. But it's just something to just, I would say, just be willing to just experiment. and just learn. And it's not a big disaster if you try something and you're like, oh, getting my nails done did nothing for me and I just wasted $20. Okay, fine, move on. So now you have that information and you can move on. I like to think of it almost in terms of if you're into nutrition, they talk about nutrient dense food. And there's like a whole list of, kale is like so nutrient dense per calorie. You're just getting so much nutrition, right? And then, you take iceberg lettuce is not terribly nutrient dense. So, and there's like that for all the different things. So it's sort of the same thing is what are my nutrient dense activities? Like how much mileage do I get out of going out? Like for me, for example, going to coffee with a friend, not in either of our houses, gets me tons more mileage than if one of us comes to the other person's house for coffee. I don't really know why. I don't need to know why. I just know I get way more mileage, so it's worth it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like routine. That's like building up your routine. I guess it's a lot of trying to understand yourself. Does that make sense?
You just summed it up beautifully. I would just say with all of these things, we want to hold it lightly because there is the danger of getting into this trap of I become so like even using the word need, I always get nervous about the word need. Oh, I need my book at night. Right. Well, if I think I need my book at night and then I'm not able to read my book at night, I've just made it a lot harder for myself. Right? So we wanna kind of have that self-understanding without ever getting rigid because we don't wanna create something that's gonna get in the way of us being able to let's say, for instance, there's a chesed opportunity that I wanna stretch myself to do, and I'm like, "Oh, but I don't know, then my routine self-care won't happen this week." Well,
Right.
how does that feel?
If
Is
you can
that
handle it, so then
you
great.
know,
If you can handle not doing your routine self-care in that moment, then great.
exactly.
You can make it up after yourself. And I think that it's not black and white, it's gray. And that's something that's
Like, the goal is to be able to set ourselves up to be people who then can
right.
grow and stretch, right? So why are we trying to create this foundation? This is not the end goal. Your self-care is not the end goal. This is I'm just trying to give myself more rocket fuel so I can go out in the world and do the things that I wanna do, or to be in my home in the way that I wanna be, or to be with my husband the way that I wanna be, right? And so yeah, it's just like a word to the wise is we wanna also be careful that we don't get too nervous and rigid about all of these things. This is kind of just like a little bit of a laboratory and things will change. They change over the course of your lifetime, over the course of different things. You need some things are more helpful, some things are less. And it's good information to know. We want to know generally what keeps me going at my, in a good way. And ideally, if you're at a place where you're not below baseline, you're somewhere in the routine range, which is quite large, then it doesn't have to be perfect. You only really fall apart if you're going below baseline.
Beautiful. And can I just ask you, as we're wrapping up, advice for people who are listening to implement self-care at whatever level they're at? What would you tell people?
Well, first of all of us, go up and down at all times, right? Like you could be at routine and then you get one exceptional self-care activity, but you're not at exceptional, right? So it's number one is I would just definitely start with checking if you're above baseline. If not, just whatever it is that you need to do to get there, you will feel so much better. We really forget how good it feels to just be well rested when we're sleep deprived, and I think that's the main reason people go below. Also, it's such a snowball effect, right? Because you're sleep deprived, so then you're eating tons of like sugar and carbs because that's the only way you can get any energy to get through your day, and then you feel even worse. It is, or you're drinking tons of coffee and now you're not sleeping, right? So it's just this like snowball you can get yourself out of. But if you're past that, I would just let this be just like a fun experiment. This is not another thing on your to-do list. This is not more homework, but just maybe a little bit of an awareness that you can add to your life of as you're going through things saying, okay, there's different activities that I do in my day, and there's certain activities that when I do them, I'm still feeling it later in the day. That's so good.
Right.
And just giving yourself permission to prioritize those things. And look, sometimes those activities aren't even entirely me focused. Like today, I took my kids to a jamboree and I spent the whole time basically watching them, laughing at them, smiling, waving, saying, I saw what you just did. No phone, no one there to talk to, nothing, just watching them. Being so present with them, being able to belly laugh when they did something cute, so amazing. Such great self-care for me. So it's not necessarily things that are like, "Oh, I need everyone to go to the babysitter so I can
Right.
take care of
Right.
myself."
I really think that the more
Yeah.
that we have this trial and error and this just experimentation and this lighthearted experimentation with self-care,
Yes.
we learn what speaks to us, what speaks to our bodies, what works for us. And it might just be surprising. It might be surprising what will end up is great for us in a routine way or in an exceptional way.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and tying this pasuk to self care. Thank you for teaching us these three levels. And I know for myself how beneficial it was to hear this. And I hope that for other people, it will be too. I'm sure it will. So if you would like to reach out to Kayla Levin or partake in any of her courses, please visit kaylalevin.com. That's KaylaLevin. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Please reach out and email us with any questions or thought. We would love to hear from you. Stay tuned for some more good vibes.